Marc Patrone radio program, heard exclusively on News Talk, Saga 960.
More craziness in Portland, where the suspect in the assassination of this Trump supporter now himself has been gunned down at the hands of federal officers. There was an exchange of gunfire between Michael Forrest Reinhold, who appeared to admit to murdering a Trump supporter last weekend in Portland, in an interview he did with Vice. Now, Mr. Reinhold himself has been gunned down, shot dead by law enforcement officers last evening as they attempted to arrest him in Lacey, Washington, which is just southwest of Seattle. We have Miles Kristen joining us from near Madison, Wisconsin, where that state, of course, has had its own issues, especially in Kenosha. Miles, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, talk about this now. What has transpired here with Mr. Reinhold, who I guess had come out in this interview with Vice and said, well, I had to take the guy out because he was a threat and I had no choice, and he was a danger to somebody else also associated with his movement, whether it's Antifa or whatever radical group he represents. And so there was an exchange of gunfire. Does this suggest to you that the feds are starting to crack down more and more on these Antifa guys?
Yeah, and I'm not surprised at all that a guy who, shot a random Trump supporter would attempt to, shoot police officers. I mean, the case of the shooting in Portland seems to be cold-blooded murder from the videos that are out there. There is video of that Trump caravan or whatever, and yes, they had like pepper spray and paintball guns, and they were engaging in some acts of violence earlier in that day. But also, Portland has seen probably the most extremes of Antifa and your more far right, and these people have been battling it out in Portland for a few years now. And the mayor, the governor, state law enforcement, all sorts of groups could have stopped these things from getting to this point a long time ago. They should have been taking action years ago when these groups started really battling it out. And it was really out on the west coast of the United States, Berkeley, Portland, Seattle, where you saw someone like Milo Yiannopoulos or Ben Shapiro would come to speak, and then two warring factions would come in and just battle it out in the streets with bats and fireworks and pepper spray and all sorts of makeshift weapons, and it's insane.
Is it possible that now that some of the polling has gone against the Democrats and that it's being blamed on the fact that Americans don't want this violence anymore, and frankly, the Democrats, if not having taken a knee entirely, they just seem to be very quiet about it. Biden didn't even bring it up during his address during the recent Democrat National Convention. Others didn't bring it up. And so there's a sense by Americans that these guys don't take the situation very seriously at all. Their polling numbers began to tank. And now all of a sudden, guess why we're seeing a crackdown on some of these thugs who have caused so much violence on the streets of cities across the United States?
Yeah, and if we look at the fundamental issues of what laws were in place to cause people to be, getting arrested. And I think I've said before, certain laws, especially in regards to the war on drugs, need to be undone. And we got to, look at some of the bigger issues about criminal justice and what led to all of this to happen. It's not, you can't just blame the police. Yes, there are bad police out there. Absolutely. Trust me, I've met a few in my day. But it's a matter of the laws that they're being made to enforce. And so we have to have serious discussions about what laws. And then now these cities are getting ripped up, and all these people are destroying their cities, and they're really just doing damage to their own cause. I mean, all the destruction of places like Madison, it's counterproductive to what they actually want, because they want less police presence. They want more local police. Well, you rip up your city, and now federal troops are going to come in. And it's well, that's not the localization of your police. You want defunding of the police, and there could be logically based arguments about where funding should go in police departments. I think we can all agree that the militarization of the police is a bad idea. But when you riot and destroy things, then you're going to get more militarization of the police.
I see Kyle Rittenhouse continues to rack up the support, financial and otherwise. There is a story. Prayers, compliments, and cash are pouring in for Kyle Rittenhouse. This is the individual accused of fatally shooting two protesters. Well, the mainstream media calls them protesters. Basically, they were Antifa members in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Happened last month. Rittenhouse, 17 years old, having raised, more than $357,000 through crowdfunding sites. Americans saying, we want to support this man. He took out a couple of bad apples who were trying to kill him. So what do you make of the support pouring in for Kyle?
Many years back, I did a short documentary piece on the Second Amendment, and I went to a gun store, and I had some conversations with people working in that gun store. And, one thing they said to me that I thought was very important, they said, if you ever think you need to have a gun to go somewhere, don't go there. And they're right. Don't put yourself in a violent situation. I mean, marshaling the streets is the job of the police, the state guard, the state troopers, so forth. The kid was 17. He had no legal right to cross state lines. I'm surprised, in fact, his mother drove him up there, apparently. So I'm not surprised she hasn't been charged. The kid broke the law. Now, whether the first shooting was in self-defense or not is debatable, and then leaving the scene of that incident is, a crime. And then, he was being chased when he fired back or whatever, but certain aspects of the whole case, I think, you got to have to let a jury decide it and everything. He definitely broke some laws, and whether you could argue it was first degree or second degree or self-defense, it's a complicated situation, but ultimately he shouldn't have been there. Nobody should have been there. I mean, I'm not a fan of curfews, but when there's rioting going on, there was a curfew. Nobody should have been out there. Just look at Kenosha, and it's like the things that got burnt down, we're talking like something like the Danish Brotherhood, some sort of charitable organization, people's old little shops and things. It's like these weren't evil corporations. Like, these were tiny little things, and there were a lot of mistakes that happened at Kenosha for many, many, many years that led people to be that angry to want to destroy. And yes, there's the people, the billionaires on the left who are, fueling this whole thing, I'm sure. But there's mistakes in a lot of areas going on in Kenosha. And, it's just crazy how this thing is getting very stolen or whatever. I don't know the right word for it, but the way that politicians are jumping on this situation, like our lieutenant governor is making a name for himself off this situation, getting national press. Why? Because he happens to be the same race. And this is a guy who voted for some of the worst policies that hurt the poor, and he's trying to act like he's a man of the people, and it's insane.
Miles Kristen joining us from Wisconsin right here on Saga 960. I think Kyle Rittenhouse's lawyer has come out, Miles, and said that the gun was in fact legal. I don't know as much about the gun laws. I know it's open carry in Wisconsin, meaning that you can have your firearm out in the open and walk around with it, and that's perfectly within the bounds of the law. And I'm not sure what the age limit is on that.
18.
18, okay, so he would have been underage in terms of having this gun. Anyway, I wanted to raise this other issue before you go. It's just another indicator that Joe Biden has some serious problems, not only in terms of cognitive decline, but now the Secret Service, look, has inadvertently confirmed a story by Gateway Pundit that Biden sexually assaulted an agent's girlfriend. So this guy, the talk is, Miles, that this guy cupped the girlfriend, the girlfriend of the breast of a girl. It'll come to
somebody,
me.
Yeah. Why am I not surprised?
He put his hand on on the breast of the girlfriend of a Secret Service person. All right. So this Secret Service guy was supposed to be protecting Biden, and they had some kind of a get together. There was a photo op. and Biden put his hand on the boob of this lady who was the girlfriend of a Secret Service agent. Then there was an altercation. This was going back to 2009, in which the Secret Service guy almost kicked Biden's ass. Anyway, what transpired was the destruction of evidence around this whole case. They all tried to bury it, but it's coming out now. I don't know, is this going to hurt Biden at all, or is this just more of the same?
I mean, I guess how much evidence there is and how much it comes out will, play a factor. But, I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, just type in, photo op with Joe Biden. It seems like every single photo op the man ever does, he's touching people or smelling them or something weird. I mean, it was funny. Last night I was watching Joe Biden's speech from Kenosha, and I muted the volume on it. And then I turned on a 2008 Joe Biden speech when he was originally running for president in 2008, and I realized they could actually just switch out the audio. Since he's got the mask on, they could just run the whole campaign with using old audio of him and make it look like he's actually got a lot more energy to him. But Biden, I mean, it's amazing how much the Democrats will ignore, the Tara Reade issue and all these other things. They're just going to ignore it. Now, the election's still 2 months away. Theoretically, Biden could, say that he's not feeling well, that he's having health issues, and he could drop out. If Kamala Harris became the candidate, then we're dealing with a whole nother world of a stronger possibility. I mean, she's a liar. Everybody knows she's a liar, but is she a stronger candidate than Joe Biden? Yeah, I guess so.
The recovery is rolling on, however, the U.S. economy adding 1.37 million jobs in August. That's huge. Unemployment falling to 8.4%. Miles, is the strengthening economy bad news for the Democrats, good news for Trump?
Yes, but, I mean, more importantly, I think to people is the COVID, and the issue of a vaccine. I mean, they're talking maybe the vaccine will be out as soon as November. And, the issue is who's going to get the vaccine? How is the vaccine going to get out the quickest? How is it going to be dispersed? And how can it be dispersed at either no cost or the lowest cost possible? I mean, I think that's going to be one issue that tens of millions of people are going to be, fundamentally worried about. They might be concerned about their economy and their stocks and so forth, but the COVID situation, I mean, that we're talking life and death and for a lot of people, and so I think COVID's going to come before the economy.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate this.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great Labor Day weekend.
You too.
South of the border. You do call it Labor Day down there, or do you call it something else? I don't know. It's Labor Day up here. That's all I know. All right, my friends, back with more news talk right here on Saga 960 after this.